Today I'm going to be talking about an age-old practice that's been going on since the dawn of time. It's both used for religious reasons and health reasons, and if you haven't guessed it already, we're talking about fasting and the incredible healing benefits of fasting. If you're new here, my name is Janine, and this is a channel, A Gut Feeling, where I talk about anything and everything gut related. I'm not a doctor or a dietitian, so anything you wish to try, please run by your doctor first. But on this channel, I share things that I have learned that have helped me in my journey with ulcerative colitis. So I am currently celebrating almost 6 months of being in remission, and this is the first time I've been in remission for this long without any medicine. I'm completely medicine free. It's so exciting. So if you want to learn more, feel free to browse around this channel. But for now, let's jump into the benefits of fasting. So to backtrack a little bit, I had done quite a bit of fasting when I was in a really severe flare. Now, fasting you have to be extremely careful with, and it's definitely recommended that you do it under supervision. But when you're doing fasting, especially when you're in a flare, if you have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, you need to be careful because you're already losing a lot of nutrients. And some people really struggle to keep weight on and they just lose weight very quickly. So fasting can be very challenging and needs to be done carefully. I was one that didn't lose weight very quickly. So I did a lot of fasting, numerous days in a row, sometimes just one day at a time. But I kept making a mistake every time that I finished fasting and came back onto food. I didn't eat properly. I ate too much of the wrong food and just fell to temptation. And I feel like it made it worse for my stomach and my gut. And so yes, I advise you, if you're going to be taking the fasting route, make sure when you come off your fast that you introduce foods very slowly and do it properly with the proper foods, proper broths, and so on. I'm actually planning to go ahead and do another fast here, see if I can stick it out for a few days and come off of it better than I did before, kind of boost my system and get some of these incredible benefits that we're going to talk about. And I apologize for my one watery eye. It's all red and sore. It got dirt in it. Anyway, so I feel like I'm just kind of bleary-eyed staring at you all. My apologies, but let's jump into the benefits of fasting. All right, so I'm going to go over these points fairly quickly, and then at the end we're going to talk about a few different types of fasts that you can try, all of them being beneficial, and you can maybe pick one that suits your needs better. So there has been a lot of studies done on fasting. There are many books written about it. So feel free to go ahead and fact check these different points I'm making, as I'm going to be going over them fairly quickly. So point number 1, fasting helps reduce insulin resistance, and thus it may help better regulate your blood sugar. Point number 2, studies have found that fasting can help decrease inflammation and promote better health. Now, while inflammation is generally a good thing because it's there to help protect your body and heal itself from injury, there's also chronic inflammation that has a lot more risk involved. And those of us with diseases like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's know all about that. So research has also shown that inflammation may be involved in the development of chronic conditions such as heart disease, cancer, and rheumatoid arthritis. All right, so speaking of the studies that I mentioned earlier, there was a study that had taken 50 healthy adults. And when they tried intermittent fasting for 1 month, they had significantly decreased levels of inflammatory markers. And then there was another small study that was done that had the same effect when people fasted for 12 hours a day for an entire month. Now keep in mind, fasting for 12 hours includes your sleep time, so that's actually not that long. Let's just say, for instance, you quit eating any food 7 o'clock in the evening, and then later on you go to bed, you wake up at 6, and then you eat breakfast at 7. That means that you broke your fast 12 hours after the last time you ate food. And so this type of intermittent fasting can also help reduce inflammation. So moving on to point number 3, very quick point. Some other research also found that if you incorporate fasting kind of as a part of your routine, it can be very beneficial for heart health. Moving on to number 4, speaking of more research, although this research has mostly been done on animals, there were several studies that found that fasting could have a powerful effect on brain health as well. Point number 5, I think this goes without any explanation. It's good for weight loss. Point number 6, fasting could possibly delay aging and extend your lifespan. Now, who all doesn't want to live longer? At least I think so. We all want to live longer, right? So there's an interesting study done on rats. And in this study, rats that fasted every other day, they experienced a delayed rate of aging, and they lived 83% longer than the rats that didn't fast. And the last point I want to make is it may aid in cancer prevention and also increase the effectiveness of chemotherapy. Now for these studies, these were animal and test tube studies that indicated that fasting may benefit the treatment of cancer and also the prevention of cancer. There was one rat study that found that alternate day fasting helped block tumor formation. And then also, similarly, there was another test tube study that showed exposing cancer cells to several cycles of fasting was as effective as chemotherapy in delaying tumor growth. And it also increased the effectiveness of chemotherapy drugs on cancer formation. So there I just quickly covered a few of the benefits that comes from fasting. And I've heard so many times how it's so healthy for you. It kind of resets your body. It helps fight off bad cells. I've heard different times it's great for preventing cancer, just like we talked about here. And when you have an inflammatory issue like IBD, it is a good thing to give your gut a break from digesting food and let it focus on healing. And so things like water fasting and bone broth fast can be very effective because you're giving your whole digestive tract a break. So instead of your body putting its energy into digesting food, it can turn its energy into healing and fighting off bad cells, reducing inflammation, and so on. All right, so let's talk about a few different types of fasts that you can do. And it all depends what you're dealing with in your life and what you feel comfortable with. So first off, we have more your long-term fast where people, fast for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 2 weeks. Some people even go up to 30 days or 40 days. That's pretty extensive, and if you do that, you better be under supervision because that's a long time to be without food. But you're only consuming water for a certain amount of days. Now there's also other long-term fasts you can try, like bone broth fast, where you consume bone broth and water. So bone broth is very healing, like I've talked about in another video, and has many incredible benefits for the body, but it's also a broth, and so your body isn't putting a lot of work into digesting it, and it's giving you a lot of benefits in the process. However, I found it was much harder to try to do a bone broth fast versus a water fast, because when you do an extended water fast, there comes a point in time where your hunger kind of subsides and it becomes much easier to continue a longer fast. Whenever I tried doing bone broth fast, it seemed that bone broth was enough of a food to keep triggering my hunger, and then it was much harder to stick to a fast because I was always hungry. The next fast is a much more doable fast, and I'm sure you've all heard of it, but it's intermittent fasting. That's where you pick a certain amount of hours in a day that you eat, and the rest of the time you refrain from eating and you only drink water. Some people do it for only 12 hours, which, like I mentioned before, wouldn't be that difficult. I would definitely recommend if you have more severe issues, like those of us with gut issues. I have heard different people that will only eat 1 meal a day, or possibly 2, and they eat within like a 4-hour window, a 6-hour window, and even an 8-hour window. And I've heard different testimonials of people that have ulcerative colitis that this is very beneficial to get into the habit of just eating this way, where you eat within like a 6-hour window, maybe even an 8-hour window, something like that. And lastly, there's a fast called a fast mimicking diet. I've never actually done this, but I believe there's been studies out there showing how effective it is for folks like us. And it's basically where you're still allowed to eat some foods, but you're tricking your body into thinking you're on a fast. You can do your own research on this, but basically the overall gist of this fast, it typically lasts around 5 days, and you keep your carb, protein, and calorie intake pretty low and your fat intake high. So on this diet, you're still not eating a whole lot, but you're still eating some things instead of nothing. So it might be a better option for people that aren't quite ready to commit to just going cold turkey on a water fast. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I would love if you give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. So thanks so much for being here. I wish you the best of health, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.